Jonathan Smith. You're an insider, an outsider, an north-sider, south-sider. Welcome to Ballymunners.
Good to be here. I needed my passport.
To get over from the south side.
To get back.
Here, fuck off, will you? Fresh, yeah?
Shut the fuck up!
You don't drink the cider.
No, water, bit of tea and coffee.
How long you at that?
25 years now.
I know you, Jonathan, a long time. I met you through Damo. You were doing his garden.
Someone had to do what he won't.
That's right, that's right. You invited me over to your cafe, Ernesto's, over in Rathmines. And we had a couple of good nights over there. We brought over the young people from Property U Project. They did a bit of barista. And then I followed you into recovery. And you've been a great support and friend to me, you know, in that. The first night that I decided to go back, I met Jonathan and his brother Will, who sadly passed away. Got on the journey, you know, and I had the pleasure of meeting Will. The first night I met him, I didn't know what the story was, but he was telling me afterwards when he seen me, he was like, "Who the fuck's this? How are you bringing it up to me, Jonathan?" You know.
I think he's felt the same about one another.
I think we did. We were a bit kind of off for each other, you know. But then he got stuck into me, you know. I used to meet him out in our town, and he was a great friend, you know. He was great. Mm-hmm. And then COVID came, and we were online, but he was still there. He was flat out on the online meetings, and then he got the diagnosis, which was very, very sudden. He had a bucket list.
He wanted to do a few things. He wanted to travel across America, go to New York, see Billy Joel, and go down to Memphis, then Nashville. He wanted to go see the Grand Canyon and a couple of those things, and my wife said to me, "You won't have time to do 2 trips, you know, things aren't great." And my son, Aaron, was in the ICU in the hospital, and we had a bit of an inside track on what was going on, you know. Yeah. And we knew we probably wouldn't get 2 trips, so we shoehorned as much as we can into, I think it was about 12 days. Yeah. Went to New York, like I said. He went to see Billy Joel in Madison Square Garden.
That's savage.
Whether you were a Billy Joel fan or not, the experience was
absolutely.
So you weren't?
Not particularly.
I could hear it in your voice.
No, but he was. People were very good to us. Like 8 of us went over. My brothers, 5 of us. My 2 sons, Aaron and Connor. And a very good friend of ours, Philip, came over. And I knew a few people in Aer Lingus, and it was nuts. Like, so we're getting on the plane, and the air hostess said to us, "It's a jungle down there to the left, lads. You're in business class to the right."
Oh, fucking deadly.
So 6 of us went into business, and Will was asleep, put his thing back in the bed, and he was so ill. I mean, he was only 2 months before he died. And we put the seat back, and he woke up. We got there.
Oh, I just got the chills there, you bastard, because you're welling up in your eyes,
I can't help it. I loved him, you know. He was like a younger version of me. He was 9 years younger than me. We were born the same day, 9 years apart. We were like a twins with a hiatus in there. It was nuts. All the problems he got into, and drinking and growing up and addiction and all that, I had all of them. It was like a blueprint. But ironically, like the last 4 years of his life, he was sober, and it was brilliant. It was joyous. And you know, I mean, I was really grieving heavily towards the end of it, and a friend of mine said, "You're not looking at his life right. How about for the first 40 odd years he was clean and sober, and the last 4 years he was coked and drunk and all of that? You need to look at it, the last years were joyous, and focus on what you had in the end." And we had a joyous time in the end.
And you don't get to do this trip twice.
No, and like we knew about a year and a half out that something was really wrong, you know. And I started doing little weekend trips away. You know, he wanted to see where Game of Thrones was up and all that, County Down, all up there, and Ballymunners. And then we went to the Cliffs of Moher and that, and he wanted to go to the Champions League final. And ironically, like last week, it was 2 years ago, exactly. Last Saturday, the Champions League final. We couldn't get tickets for the final, so I brought him to Barcelona, me and him on our own. And he only had the tracheostomy in at that point. And my son, he said, "You'd be grand." But when I came back, he said, "Jake, you were taking the chance." So
I couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? I couldn't. I was like, "How is he doing this?" You know? And he was laughing. He'd be saying, "All right, blood." He was mad. He was great crack, like, you know? And just the laugh you'd have with him, even online. Like, we'd be having meetings online, and you'd just be falling around laughing with him because he was so funny. And yet, in front of our eyes, he was 6 stone or something, like, you know. Yeah. And what I learned from him was, no matter what happens, do not pick up a drink.
Yeah.
Do not pick up a drink.
But he went down to 5.5 stone in the end, you know, from 13 stone, like in 6 months. It was nuts. And, you know, I mean, he was on a peg feed at this point. But Will had a massive hemorrhage on the Friday night at about 11:15. But we got the 8:30 Courage to Change meeting with a lad you had on the podcast, John Rooney, and that was on the Friday before it was hours before he went into a coma that he never came out of.
So his last thing he really did was he was on the meeting.
And that was just like, I think, second meeting of the day. Got a meeting every day. And like, people who aren't in recovery don't get it. It's about your mental capacity to cope with life on life's terms.
Yeah.
You know, one of my brothers said, you know, what do you still need the meetings for? He can't drink anymore. He just looked at me and I looked at him. We both shook our head. And no one needed to answer.
No, he didn't need to answer, you know.
It's about your headspace.
I just had to do a podcast there with Ballymunners Recovery, you know, just talking about the fellowship and all that, you know.
Yeah.
And talking about my journey. And I was welling up in there talking about it, you know, because I'm only starting to realise how far I'm after coming, you know. And what it does for us is incomprehensible. You can't explain it, like, you know. But right now, Jonathan, a lot of time, I'm always slagging him, saying he's a Southsider. And we were coming in, we met somebody, and I was saying, he's a Southsider and all this, right? When Will died, he was laid out where they lived. Right? Yeah. Right. Or you went to the wrong gaff, and it was a big middle class gaff, you know, big, you know, bungalow, probably there since 1916 or something like that. Right? These people came out and they're like, no, you're at the wrong place, go around. So we went around and we went into this little estate, right? And the person I was with, she says, this is like down there on the south side. And there was a fella having a piss in the field. He pulled in a taxi, jumped out the back of the taxi and had a piss. I mean, we went in. She was right. It was a little working class enclave in that area, like, you know. And then I got it because I had so much in common with you, like, you know, and connect with you and all that kind of stuff, you know. And I would have heard you saying that you were born in Ballsbridge and all that kind of stuff. But you weren't really born in Ballsbridge. You were born into a tenement, weren't you?
In those houses. I was born 62 Pembroke Road, you know. The great Paul Patrick having lived above us.
Right.
There were 5 families lived in that house.
Yeah.
You know, with no running hot water, you know. I never knew what running hot water was. To boil a kettle had get washed.
Yeah.
You know, my man used to get a kid's bath and fill it full of water and we'd all get washed on Saturday night, whether you need it or not.
Yeah.
Twice a year.
And like I tell my kids that, and they look at me like I'm simple. But like, I remember my mother sticking the wallpaper to the walls with tacks.
Yeah, I remember
it was so damp, and my kids would look at me like, this fella, see how I remember my father on strike in the ESB in the 60s, and it was illegal to strike if you're in the semi-state or state thing, and they were jailed for it.
Yeah.
You know, and we were having bread and sugar sandwiches for a month. Now, we probably thought it was great, but Jesus, you know, when you think back, you know, and then you get a bit of Hazlitt or a bit of brawn sandwich, and you think it won the lotto. But, you know, you see the kids now with their little lunch boxes and their little cheese singles and their juices and the whole lot.
You see kids with avocado sandwiches now. But like, for people who don't remember the 70s, right, Hazlitt and brawn and all those things were like processed meats in a big long tube, a metal tube.
Yeah.
And the butcher would take off the top of it and then slide the meat onto the slicer.
That's right.
And you get 6 slices of brawn or Hazlitt. And I loved all that stuff.
Quarter of brawn.
I just want to tell you, right, I tasted it recently.
What, Hazlitt?
No, brawn, I think it was.
Hazlitt is like gold to me.
Is
You
it?
can get fresh Hazlitt. I've had it in a few places with fresh Hazlitt on fresh batch.
I tell you where you get it, Jonathan. Mead Street. That's where I got
There
it.
you go.
You can get it on
They're
Mead
selling
Street.
the same Hazlitt from
you have it there?
1973.
It's still the same batch.
They were the same batch, yeah. All you want is fresh batch, bit of Hazlitt, bit of brawn. There was a thing called chicken roll. I wouldn't say there was any chicken in it.
Chicken roll without the chicken.
I don't know what it was, but they were
Spam.
they were what you ate on bread, like, you know what I mean? And I remember if my ma had a salad, right, I'd say it must have cost her fucking 30 quid or something to put a salad out, because you had lettuce, you had hard cheese, ham, eggs, onions, spring onions,
Scallywags.
scallions, bit of coleslaw,
Yeah.
right?
Salad cream.
Salad cream, not mayonnaise, yeah.
No.
It was lovely, you know, but I never ever got the salad thing, you know. I think we would have ate the salad and I'd be saying to my ma afterwards, when are we getting our dinner? But I remember all that, all that stuff as well about my granny's house and all the tacking up the wallpaper with thumbtacks because there was a leak in the ceiling or in the roof, and there just wasn't money there to do that stuff, like, you know what I mean? And somebody got up in the roof with half a pallet or something and fix it.
That's right. I mean, we had nothing. We absolutely had nothing.
Who was in the gaff?
So it was my mother, my father, and my 4 brothers and myself.
What was your ma's name?
Olive. So my father, he was a good man, but I mean, he for sure he drank alcoholically, and he worked in the ESB. Again, like he would never seen the value of a salary. He'd have a couple of pints every night before he came home. We had very little, And there were other families that had a car and had this and had that, and we never had anything. And I remember, like, when Will was born, like, I was 10, going on 11. That would have been 1972. He was in towelling nappies, And, like, you look at the women back then, the way they used to struggle with kids. Imagine 3 and 4 kids with towelling nappies, and
I was into myself. I'd be the same age as Will, and I was in towelling nappies.
And no real support from my husband. My dad, like, would never push the pram or anything like that. I remember that distinctly. There was a no-no for men back then. She had to go and take a job, doing a bit of cleaning, doing a bit of this, doing a bit of that, to give us a little holiday. Like, we never seen nothing from my father. He handed up a few bob at home, sure, but it was not substantial, So I tried to learn from those mistakes and try and fix them. No, my kids would suffer the way we did.
I heard you talking before, Jonathan, about you got a job.
I was 11, I got a job delivering meat for a butcher shop.
That's right,
the street.
Yeah. Remember you telling me?
And I was earning the same in tips as there was in wages. So, I mean, at the time, like, it was 1973, I was pushing this bike that, was about 3 sizes too big for me. The big basket in the front, I was getting £5 a week for it. I used to go up at 3:30 after school till 6:30, all day Saturday. I was earning the same. I get £5 or £6 in tips. But from that point, I started to buy my own clothes and all that. And because I could stand on my own 2 feet, that gave me a bit of independence.
I remember earning £4 out delivering leaflets one day,
Yeah.
And my ma said I could have it. She said, you have that. And I went into town and I bought a pair of boots for 50 pence out of army wagons. Bought a pair of combats. I remember all the ex-German army stuff.
Yeah.
There was something like that. And I spent the £4 on clothes and I was clothed from head to toe. I was decked out.
In that gear for about 10 years. It was bulletproof.
Still has it.
He still has it.
I tell you,
He throws it on every couple of weeks.
I remember the combats, wherever they were sewn, were falling apart.
Yeah.
And my ma worked in a pram shop up in Gardner Place. And I went up one day and all the side of the combats were at the bursting. And I stood in my jocks while my ma sewed it on the industrial machine. But she said, I'll have to do this again because it was like cackle. Remember where the prams were sewn with like fishing line,
Monofilament, yeah.
There you go.
Look at you with your Southside education. Fuck off, you will you?
But it used to cut the Swiss roll at me. The whole, like, it was obviously never sewn again, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it used to fucking, be sitting in school and they'd be jumping up because there'd be bits of the fucking monofilament fucking sticking in me Swiss roll.
Yeah.
So,
give you a little tittle.
Tell us about Ernesto's.
So we had the cafe in Dawson Street. I mean, we were doing the cafe for the Independent from about 1999, 2000. We had a cafe in Dawson Street. Well, we were doing the catering out in City West where the Independent was. And then they acquired this college in Dawson Street called it the Independent College. We started doing the catering for them there. I think it was about 2007 at that point. The Independent group started to be dismantled when the man Dennis O'Brien came into the group. Anything the fact that hadn't got to do with digital media was getting axed, and people on big high salaries were pushed out when they were bringing in students to do the work. And like I said, it became a very, very different model, and it became somewhere where we were doing the catering there, but I didn't really want to work there. I didn't, and from about 2003 or 4, we had been over to Cuba. Myself, my brother-in-law went over. I was sober a while, and we went over to Cuba. It was the first trip that I didn't have to borrow money or ask someone for a lend of it without no intention of paying it back.
Yeah.
And I went over on this first trip. I had a great time, and Aaron was born at that point, my eldest boy. He'd have been 6 or 7 back then, and I said he'd like to come over there maybe the following year, and Caroline wouldn't go over at the time. It was such a long flight. We were actually going to go initially to the Florida Keys, but to go there to go fishing cost about $400 or $500 a day. But to go fishing in Cuba, the same fishing, though it's only 70 kilometres of a difference between the Florida Keys and Havana. So we went there fishing instead. You know, I didn't gargle anymore. I liked the odd cigar, and I liked the whole socialist politics of it. I thought it'd be an interesting place to go. We started going there, and a couple of years after that, I brought Aaron over. He'd have been about 8 at this point. He met these men who were really competent musicians in this small town, really brilliant musicians. And they started to give him tuition, give them a lot of their time free. Aaron said to me, Dad, why don't you try and do something for them? And I said, I will, son, but I don't know what it is. I mean, I will, but just let me think of what it is. So I had this bit of a brainwave that they had this CD that they produced themselves at a CD writer, a badly produced CD. And the cover for the CD was like something that was made from a cereal box. So because we had the contacts within the Independent News and Media Group, I got the CD remastered, digitally remastered. I got all the artwork done by a young girl in there, Denise Boland. She was brilliant. She did lovely graphics and did a whole new artwork. And we put their CD at this band in this town called Remedios, north of Santa Clara. We put the CD on sale with their permission, and we raised about €2,500–3,000. But what it meant was we could buy the instruments for the kids in the village from the sale of their own CD.
Deadly.
So that they were self-supporting. Over the years, we kept this going, and various musicians came to the cafe and helped out our endeavours to try and keep it rolling. And really successful in the sense that the kids got hundreds of instruments over the years. I think we tallied about 300 instruments. Coupled with a good bit of cash, they had hundreds of CDs that they could have resold to tourists themselves. And as a result of going over there so many times, we brought back a lot of artwork and a lot of things we liked from their music and the vision of colour and what makes people, as I say, make your heart sing, you know. And in 2015, we acquired the lease for this cafe in Rathmines, and it was my wife who spotted the place, you know. Like anyone who's heard me talk before about it, that's the truth of it, you know.
A shop, like an Eastern European food shop or something.
Yeah, it was a little Moldovan food shop. I said to my missus, that's a dump. She goes, you're not looking at it right, it's been idle a long time, there's an awful smell and it was dreadful. She said the pat is a double width pat from the normal pats, you know. So it gets the sun from the time it comes up till about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening all day long. She says there's 3 bus stops, there's 2 of them right just down from the cafe, and there's one on the other side of the road.
And you're in Rathmines.
She goes, like, we opened the cafe, I had a few bob saved, I didn't have to borrow anything. And I went to the bank actually to get a hand with an overdraft. They told me to get a business plan together. This is on the Thursday, we were opening on the Monday. They said, you can see a Matt withdrawing down all the money I saved to put into this. I said, would you say it was, they had a poster, your man had a poster in the bank, and I had a fella reaching into a Volkswagen Beetle, and I had AIB backing Brave. I said, would you say I'm brave? I said to him. He said, absolutely. But I said, you're not backing me, are you? I said, you're not beside me, you're down the fucking road from me, that's where you are. And the fella came up, a security fella. He said, sorry, so keep your voice down. I said, you went in the parties and go and get the bow. I said, I'm out of here. And I walked out there, and I felt great because I left off a bit of steam. I got a lend of some cash from a friend of mine. It just as a working overdraft while the cafe was open. Because when it was due to open, I actually had €200 left. I had nothing left. But my name was in good shape with my suppliers. I would have got stuff, but I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. Anyway, we opened the cafe. We did up the shop, myself and a friend of mine, Shay Murphy. He did most of the building work. We put a kitchen in. The kitchen had to come out, and we had to put 3 sinks in, HSE regulations and all of these things. And we put all the pictures we got from Cuba, all the artwork and colour and vibrancy about it. We took things we liked about other cafe, and then we looked at sort of really good coffee, you know. And my wife Caroline did the menu out. She's a real foodie, you know. She's great at that. And the type of cafe hit the ground running, more or less, you know. We started off with 2-3 people, and we've 10 people there now. We've never had to cut anyone loose, even through tricky times. We didn't. 2 of my family worked there, my son and my daughter.
Talking about the art on the walls, there's also a couple of Dublin jerseys. What's that about?
Kevin Mack started to come in to the cafe, and I did a bit of work with him and this group Warriors to the Light. We sort of supported one another in various endeavours, you know.
Kevin McMenamin, he's an ex-Dublin player.
Yeah, he's a great lad.
Yeah, he's a brilliant fella. Great singer.
Yeah, he's a really good Kevin. Good, great human being. And lovely family as well, by the way. I got to know Phil McMahon from him, and we looked at developing barista courses for the lads in the prison. They were waiting on funding and various things, and then Philly went ahead with his own model. But we got to know a few of the senior players. I got to know Michael Darrett as well through doing work, say, we would do the Santa for Kelly Harrington at Christmas time. We got to know through Michael. And then because we know a good few of the senior players, a lot of the other players started to come into the cafe, and they all brought us in their jerseys.
The jerseys, it's deadly.
They're the ones with the, they had got the tracker in the back. They're Mac Warren jerseys. A fella came into me one day and he said to me, I have a Leash jersey. And I just looked at him and I said, you hang on to that. I said, you need 9 All-Ireland to get on that wall, sunshine.
There's a lot of giving or a lot of charity. Where did that come from? Were you always like that?
I think, Dean, what you reap, you sow. And if you're sowing nothing, that's what you're reaping. Nothing.
There was a time when you were sowing nothing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my soul was like a desert, you know. It's all about me, what I wanted for me. But you're on the road to self-destruction. But if you want to grow, you know, you grow from the outside in as well, you know, as well as the inside out. And I could see, like, from, though we went to help those kids in Cuba, it was the kids in Cuba that gave my kids great moral fibre, great moral compass in how to look at other people before themselves. And I could see the benefit of that. And I could also see the benefit of do as I do, not as I say, you know. You don't tell people that. As my wife says, the lion doesn't have to tell anyone he's a lion. You know, people see an effort. But in this case, it's not people seeing me effort, it's my kids seeing me effort I'm talking about. And as a result of that, I think we sound a good seed. Yeah. You
tell a great story when you were starting out on the road to recovery, you know. You were like a lot of people in early recovery, hemming and hawing, or what do I do? And you were down the country and you went into a train museum and a fella said to you, keep doing what you're doing, and them kids will, you know, imagine what their life is going to be like, you know. And I had Connor with me over in the youth centre a couple of years ago. He was doing this transition year.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how is this going to work out? This youngster from the south side coming over, you know. How is this going to work out? And he was absolutely unreal. He had the same values that we had, you know, like we were fixing up bikes at the time. And I remember him getting stuck in, and he had the same values. He had the same absolutely sound, like, you know what I mean? And he got on with everybody there, you know. He was different, but the difference wasn't a barrier to him or them. They all loved him and he got on great with them, you know. So Aaron as well, I know very well. Again, what recovery has given you, you've given them.
Well, the man Christy T said to me over in a room in East Wall, he said to me, you have a great opportunity to break a cycle of alcoholism in your own family, you know. I was delighted he said it to me, but it's like landing an RSJ on me lap.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I was like, what am I going to do with this? I started to think about that. Dysfunction in home life, it's habitual and people carry it on. And the same way as when people see good stuff going on at home, that's habitual, that they reciprocate that. They adhere to that. And I think my kids see that in the way Caroline and I are. You know, I would have been fearful. You know, my father, he never beat us up or anything, but I just didn't have that bond with him. You know, and my father took sick in his late 40s. By my father's early 50s, his both his legs amputated from drinking and smoking. 60 cigarettes a day. And he was told, like, if you don't do this and that, your health is going to be adversely affected. And you might as well be telling them, tomorrow's Thursday. It was going to happen. And that was it, you know. And true enough, he got his legs amputated and he's in a wheelchair, and we became his carers. So I never had that mentoring from a father figure that I should have had. But ironically, I got it from my wife's father, who I'm going out with my missus 40 odd years, and I got it from my wife's father, John. But I didn't want that to happen to my kids, because I was aware how detrimental that was. Because you're like a boat that's been tethered to the shore, and all of a sudden you're cut loose and you're bobbing around, you don't know where you're going. Cut loose at sea.
Where'd you meet your wife?
On the south side. I met her in Bective Rugby Club. I think I was after having a couple of bottles of Saturn Brew, special brew at the time. And I was half floating around the place. I was about 17. And I met her. We're together ever since. 44 years later. Gulp. She's a great girl. She wouldn't take any shit from me, you know. She turned me around. I wouldn't be alive day and only for her today. That's a fact. I'd be dead. I'm no doubt about that, because I was on a road to destruction, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. We trouble with police and bills and tax, insurance, all the problems that addicts have. But the minute I got myself together, those problems dissipated bit by bit by bit. But I wouldn't lose the run. I wouldn't get away with acting with her either. I remember I was at a meeting in town in Molesworth Street one lunchtime with Will, and I was slightly off the spiritual beam, and they were giving out these medals for sobriety, and I said, oh great, 1, 2 years, and I was sitting back thinking I'm big cheese here, load of bullshit, you know. And I brought it home and I said to me missus, look at that, 15 years sober. She goes, that's fucking great. What do I get for 30 years with you? It's like getting a bag of a wet cloth. I remember thinking to myself, now if you want to get back into your box, honey. The program's given me a great, I suppose, barometer for living. It tells us, in the end of it, the 12th step, it tells us when we're off the spiritual beam. It doesn't say when or if or how. It says when we are. But I've the tools now to pull back from it, I think. You know, and I can fix it before it blows up.
For people who aren't addicts, who don't drink, where did they get that from? Where did they get those tools from? Because we were talking to Colin the other day, and he was talking about tools as well. I'd be thinking that my parents would be in the rooms. I know a lot of people who are in recovery. I grew up in Ballymunners, so there's a lot of addiction, there's a lot of malady, there's a lot of pain, and now it seems like there's a lot of healing. But someone said to me before, we're the lucky ones. We know what's fucking wrong with us. We know there's so many people out there that you don't have a fucking clue where they're at. You can see the bottle in front of you. You can go, right, that's my one. But there's people with all types of gambling, sex, food, pornography, whatever the fuck. But they just don't know where they're at. Like, they don't even know. They're not aware that it's even a problem. So I'd be thinking, where do they get to plug in to those tools?
All someone who's in addiction can do, the best advertising you can be for a 12-step program or anything like that, is to walk down your own road sober, and that hopefully someone who's not right will come to you and ask for guidance and help. And I think it's important not to tell anyone anything, by the way, but important to show them what you did and how you got right, and maybe to suggest that if you tried it, it may work for them. People who are addicts don't like being told that, but you're saying like people who may not be in the rooms.
I'm just saying
struggling.
life is fucking tough for everyone.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes the addicts are the lucky ones because they know what their thing is that they can work on.
Sure.
But life is tough.
I think if we can, there's certain things we can do, and I think it can apply to anybody, Dean, you know. I think if we surround ourselves with good people, for starters, not people that are going to be like energy vampires sucking the life out of us in every way and leading us down roads we don't want to go down. And then when we tell them something doesn't suit, they leave us be, you know. Do things that we like doing, no matter what other people think of it, you know, and get into your head that for sure, it doesn't matter what someone thinks of you. It doesn't matter. And start to be comfortable in your own skin. Look at the things you want to leave off. Look at the things that are detrimental to you and don't do them. Look at the things that are positive for you and working well for you and accentuate them things. And you build up a store and build up a store. And it's like affirmation. You build up an awareness of yourself. And if you're right, it'll spill onto everybody else. The fella says, like, you can't give from an empty well. You can't. There's nothing there to give. But if you're well in yourself, people that see it in you, you don't have to say anything. They see it in you. But we all have the ability to tap into it. We might need a bit of an encouragement. There's things you can do. Go swim in the sea. You don't, even if you don't like that, go walking in forested areas. Go out on a bike cycling with friends. There's many things you can do. Don't be looking for anyone's approval on stuff. Do what you want. Ask yourself, what do I want for me? What makes me better? That's not detrimental to someone else. And if you try and think of someone else every day for one small thing, even a cup of tea, how are you keeping? How are you doing? That's all it takes. But you got to put it into practice.
When you were talking about your brother, Will, and you were talking about he went down to 5.5 stone, you were there with him. You were on that journey, and then Sparky was talking about John Rooney in Mulranny that we went down to see.
I know John a long time. I know John since I was a kid.
And he's dying.
Yeah.
And he's got to a place where he's accepting that dying is part of the life. And what I was saying, it's tough. I'm not giving out. I'm not saying, oh, life is shit. Part of the miracle of it is, it's fucking tough. And we have an idea in our head, and I don't know where it comes from. It should be a walk in the park. It should be easy. And there's just, I think, because I got to know you at a point in my life where in my head I was trying to bend the universe to fit the way I thought it should be. and hanging out with you and eating food with you in your cafe brought me to a lovely place where I was less attached to that fantasy and a bit more grounded. I'm leaning into that since then. And I've got that from my mother and I've got that from a few other people, but I just want to thank you for that. It was a moment in my life where somebody who didn't know me, who had no relationship with, who didn't owe me anything, just put their arm around me and said, come on in here for a bleeding sandwich and a coffee. And it was fucking dead simple. And it gave me an appreciation that life, part of life is the toughness in it, that you can push off, that you can bounce off, that you can learn from. And it looks like that's what your story is, because the first couple of years in your life was fucking tough.
Very much so. I know the things that have really cut deep with me I've learned from much quicker than things that have sailed along. They teach you a sharp, short lesson. But I notice I've been blessed in the sense that a few people over the years have come to me for advice and help regarding addiction. And I noticed in the house every time they came in, and I had the fellas come into my house, they sell companies for millions, and the fellas come into me, you'll be sleeping on the bus with need a bat, they'd be smelling the sale piss and everything, you know. But my missus would never judge anyone, and I'm delighted for that. But she'd always hand them something to eat. And I said to her one day, why did you do that incidentally? Now, I was delighted she was, but I asked her, why did she do it? I wondered why she did it. And she just looked at me, she said, you love people well. And she's right, you know, you do. People feel that it's an inherent thing, you know, like when a mother would give a child naturally before things would take over. But you love people well, you know, and you care for people. You look after people. You think about them unselfishly. And you give them a bit of food if you have an opportunity to do so. And people feel that. You know, they feel it. I think that's why all my kids, their kids still come back to the house, even though they're adults now, because we feed them. A couple of years ago, Aaron was away in Argentina. Every year I always went up to Newry and I'd get €300 or €400 worth of fireworks and I'd let them go on the end of the garden. And I'd ask all the kids to come in because now you can't do this and you can't do that. So I said, I'll just go and buy the fireworks, bring them into the house. We let go a load of fireworks, we make a big curry, we'll order about 10 pieces, we'll have about 40, 50 adults and a load of kids. And on this particular day, Aaron was in his 20s now. He was travelling around Argentina with a mate of his. He's broken up from a relationship he was in. And two of his mates rang. They said, John, are we okay to come over to your gaff tomorrow for the curry and the fireworks? I said, you know, Aaron's away in Argentina. And they said, what's that got to do with that? And yeah, I said, come on ahead, son.
Yeah, we had the same thing. We used to go up to our mate Pete's, Ma's, Pauline used to do a Sunday dinner.
Yeah.
Sunday tea it was, right? So I'd have me dinner and me Ma's and then we go around there for egg and onion sandwiches. And we used to do mad things on her. We used to wind her up. Like she came in the door one day and we took a picture of her and she looked, you know, it's a big surprise heading her. And we got that photo developed and we turned it into a postcard and we sent it to her. So the postman would see it and all that, you know. Another time we brought Aidan Walsh up to the gaff. Remember Aidan?
Yeah.
Brought him up to the gaff and he's there, oh, thank you very much, man. I'll be here next week. I forged a letter from Aidan saying I'm coming up for my birthday next week and all this, right? And we drove her mad. Pauline, she was great crack. But when Pete went to the air corps, we still arrived around and she wouldn't have it any other way. Jonathan, you've been in a documentary about Damo. It was an amazing documentary, you know, called Love Yourself Today, which I think was originally going to be called The Church of Damo. But I think The Church of Damo is far better. What was it like to be part of the documentary?
We were honoured, really. I got to know Damo over the years through a family friend. He asked me would I take part and just have a look at it in a broad way. And this chap, Ross Killeen, who directed it, called me up. And I don't know what it was. You know, like, you get a bad feeling off a fella instantly and you get a good feeling off a fella instantly. Yeah. Got a really good feeling off this fella. He's a really good egg, you know. Felt I knew him, like, but I didn't. I think initially he came out to the cafe and then I think he spent maybe an hour there or so. I think I got some cover in that I could sit and talk to him uninterrupted. And then I think the second time I met him, I think we might have went for a swim. And I really felt at ease with him and he told me what he was trying to do with the documentary, that everyone would tell their story and that it would be based around people tapping into the whole thing what Damo's music is about. And like Damo says himself, he writes healers, not hits.
Yeah.
And people who know his music can bear testimony to that fact. And you see it in the room in Vicar Street. If you look around you, you can see it in people. Yeah. And there's a community. We're like a family nearly now. And you see it in the Ivy Garden to a greater extent, and there's some of them lovely summer's eves that we've been blessed with over the last few years.
Remember the one last year?
I was mad when Michael Darragh got under me and picked me up in the shoulders. My age, where are you going, son?
It was some night, all dancing together and just having the crack. I was feeling it because I wasn't drinking. There was a lot of energy in that field, you know, and I was picking up on it, and I was just worried, you know. And then I spotted you, and I was like, right, I'm grand now, I'm safe here, right?
Well, we're always like that, aren't we?
Yeah, we're like that, you know. But then an amazing thing happened. I went back, my mates were all in one group, but a couple of them were drinking and stuff like that, so I was a bit uneasy. I have a mate, his partner, there was something different about her, you know. I was like, what's happening to her, you know? She used to smoke weed on a daily basis, you know. She had a spiritual experience at that gig, and to this day hasn't smoked weed again, hasn't smoked a cigarette, hasn't drank alcohol, you know. Well, just a change in her. There was just something very, very magical in that space, and I can't explain it. I actually can't explain it. Like, I can't say it was energy, it was frequency, I just don't know what it is. Like, but I know what it is was amazing. I remember walking out of there and just feeling I could have floated home. I was watching a documentary about Rory Gallagher, you know, and he used to play in Belfast when nobody else played. Belfast was dead, you know, and this fella said, I lived 30 miles out in the country, and I walked home from the Ulster Hall from Rory Gallagher, and his dad thought he was dead because he hadn't come home. Like, he spoofed that he was going to the gig, you know. But the way he described the atmosphere from that gig was exactly the way I felt it at Demos. So there's definitely, I don't know whether it's an Irish thing, because I think, you know, we had Michael on here before, and I asked him, what's it to be inherently Irish? And I think it's a spiritual thing. I think we have a spirit. Tommy Tiernan says Ireland is an open air asylum. I get that, you know, because I think there's stuff that we do and that happens around us that we just don't even care about it, you know. Bono said one time, when I got home to Dublin and I walked down the street, nobody says that to me. Nobody bothers me. I think we have a confident spirituality. People were saying when we lost Catholicism, when we lost those rituals, we lost something. I don't think we did. I think the foundation of the Irish people, our spiritual foundation is very strong, and I think we carry it. Now, I think some people are kind of lost in it and going, well, how do we express this? Like, you know what I mean? And important things like funerals and stuff like that. That's one thing that we do well here is funerals, like, you know, and our ritual, even if it's Catholic or not Catholic, is deadly, you know, because some people will gather ashes and stuff like that and put them into the sea, and they'll bring the family together. And if you didn't have a spirituality, if you didn't believe that the person was important, you just put their ashes in the black bin, you know, on a Wednesday to be picked up by the council on Thursday. But we don't. Inherently, we have a connection with the spirit, and that's what it means to be Irish, I think. So I think when we have those gatherings, you know, when you think about what were the most amazing things that happened to me when I was an older teenager, Fela, going down, thousands of people, there was no riots or no nothing, everybody was together. There's a bit of grub, there's a can, there's this, you know, slaying, all those things. We seem to do well when we gather as community. And then there's this energy that's created in that. So whether it's Rory Gallagher, whether it's Phil Lynott, whether it's U2, we celebrate very, very spiritually. Again, the documentary about Rory Gallagher, and he said when they went to Japan, they were very quiet, but then at the end they went nuts, and that was their tradition. But I always heard people saying, we love Irish audiences, and I always thought it was a bit cheesy, but now I get it, because I've been in an audience in the UK, I've been in an audience in France. It's a different experience.
Very much.
So when Irish people are gathered, our energy, it's very seductive, you know.
I think that's what was up with you that night in the Ivy Gardens. You were seduced by something, and your relationship used to be the alcohol.
Yeah.
And you weren't sure where to put it. Yeah. I kind of find it, I call it love, and it's just love everywhere. It's just love in people's eyes. And the great privilege I have now is that I can go there and not have alcohol at all and still feel the love.
The Ivy Garden in particular is a great night, but Vickers Street as well. And, you know, like, you got to hand it to them who's built it and built it and built it. But you mentioned earlier on, you're talking about like the church and all that, and then Ireland's ancient roots, us as Celtic people. You must remember, we were 3,000 years prior to the church in Europe. We were gathering as Neolithic people down in Newgrange. You know, it's inherent within us.
Absolutely. That's what I'm
The
saying.
church came in on top of it and tried to, like, it's like brand Catholicism. But that's not what I believe a loving God wants for any of us. You know, I don't believe that. I believe if we believe in a God, I believe for me, it's just a maternal, like the way a mother would nurture a child. That's all it is. And to love one another, you know, to be kind to one another, to have empathy with one another, you know, to look out for one another.
My dad was that one because he was homeless for a while and he was in town. He was working the soup kitchens as well. And he said he got this from the rooms, which is HALT, hungry, angry, lonely and tired.
Yeah.
So if you can feed them, if you can put them into a nice bed, if you can give them a bit of company, the anger in them will go away, you know, to just feel like they're being listened to.
That's it.
I remember walking up in the Bog of Frogs with you, and you were in a nice place because you were able to talk honestly and openly about your love for your brother and the pain that you were feeling.
Yeah.
And it was great, and there was some slagging and some laughing and a bit of tears as well. But we walked past the dolmen.
Yeah, I remember.
And me and you went off on this conversation for about 40 minutes about what's on the other side of the dolmen. What is the fucking dolmen? We have these things in Ireland, and I grew up in a place in Ballymunners, and all the housing estates are called Nout, Dolmen and Cromlech. They have all these kind of Celtic. Druid is the one I was brought up in. The house that we went into, I think we were like the second tenant in there, but the first tenant was in there, and it was all this, on the bare plaster, there was all this Celtic symbolism written all over the walls, and I was fucking blown away looking at it. Some of these bleeding Celtic hippies had squatted the place for about 6 months and got out some charcoal and drew all over the walls. What's your relationship with that world, that part of who we are?
As in what's on the other side of when we leave this world? I don't fear anything, you know, because I believe I've already been in hell and addiction. So I'm done with that. I believe there is something after, but I don't believe we have anything to fear unless we've lived a life that needs to be judged. If we're bad people, if we've done bad things, then I believe there's a good chance that that'll be reciprocated in an afterlife.
You've done bad things.
But I rectified it.
How'd you do that?
By just not being the shit today. and then I repeat it for 25 years, yeah. I believe the right things will happen to us. I believe in a loving God. I don't believe in a God of fire and brimstone. I don't believe in that. But I believe in a God of care and nurture. I believe in a God who's all-inclusive and doesn't judge anyone. Yeah.
In that place where we're going to, I don't know if it's through the dolmen or if it's a different frequency to where we're at. I would imagine your brother's there.
I got a bit emotional last Friday. I was out in Damos, you know, and I it's funny, like, I offered to help him out doing the garden about 10, 15 years ago, and here I am still offering me help, but it's okay. We've become good friends, and there's things you do for many reasons, but I do this because, for choice, I like to do it. And I have great memories out in that house with his family there. During the COVID years, we did some songs with Will and Damo there, and I have those memories forever. But I was going on Friday, and as you walk in there's a pillar on the left-hand side and on the right, but on the pillar on the left, I used to lean on the pillar on the left, looking in the way the door is, and he'd lean on the right-hand side of the same pillar, looking that way. But I found myself on that side of the pillar. I don't know how, I was just in the place where he stood, and I thought to myself, I wonder where he is today. I just got real emotional, you know. And I looked up, the sky was blue, and I felt I knew where he was. He was all around me. I felt he was around me. I feel him with me all the time. I would go hug the little fucker. But, well, yeah, he's around me for sure. I believe people, they're with us in just a different dimension, that they look out for us and guide us. They stay with us. So that's why I don't fear the afterlife. I don't. I have no fear of it. None. And like I said, it might have sounded like I was joking earlier on saying I was in hell and addiction, but it was. When your mind is tortured and you can't sleep at night and your mind's rancid and you're afraid of the postman, you're afraid of what they bring, everything is a horrendous chore. Walking down the road, who you see jumping into the doorway, did I borrow off him, you know? Your undergarments, were they clean from the night before, and all the problematic situations to go with addiction. When you're free of all of that and you make restitution to people who you've damaged in the past, and you can live a clear, free, happy, joyous life, and we can tap into those around us who are gone. Even though they're gone, we can tap into them. I believe that. I can feel it. You know?
Did your dad have those restless nights?
My father, not that I'd be aware of. Like I said, I mean, my father took ill when I was very young. He had a stroke during them years. So his cognitive shape wouldn't have been great. It was damaged. But my parental guidance, more or less, came from my mother-in-law Lily and father-in-law John. They were always there for me, the good and the bad. You know, there's a lot of bad. And the fact that they even stuck with me when I wasn't treating Caroline in a way I should have been, but it wasn't intentional. I think they could see that underneath that I was an okay person. I wouldn't go as far as to say he's a good person. I can imagine someone walking in with my daughter misbehaving. I wouldn't be too happy. Lily only came in with her boyfriend there a few weeks ago. And I was thinking, what am I going to do to this fella now? To give him a sharp shock, but not to scare him. And so she said she'd go out with him about 2 weeks, and he plays sport, and he's a clean living young fella and the whole lot. So I was sitting on one couch and he sat down, he shook my hand, he had a good firm handshake, and Lily was sitting over on the other couch and we were talking about this and about that. I said to him, you know I keep bees, son, don't you? Yeah, he said, Lily was telling me. I said, you know if the queen bee isn't happy, there's no honey. Yeah, he says. And I pointed over to her and I said, she's my queen bee, that little girl over there. And if she's not happy, I won't be happy. Do you understand what I'm saying to you, son? And he looked at me and he said, I do. I said, do you want a can of Coke now, do you?
Your son Buzz.
I had to try and lay down a little marker, but not scared to live in daylight out.
That's lovely.
That is nice.
Your wife's folks, are they still with us?
No, they're long passed on. John passed away 21 years ago, and Lily passed away 2-3 months before her daughter was born. Caroline was 7 months pregnant when she passed away. It was a real tempestuous time in Caroline's life. Well, all her lives, but Caroline in particular. She must be going through an emotional roller coaster. The joy and all of that at the birth of a little girl. Her mother only passed 2 months prior. They both died from cancer, you know. John had cancer all over him, in his lungs, but all over him. And Lily had breast cancer and it got real aggressive. But it was sepsis, she died from sepsis, you know. But Lily was born. There was a bit of sunlight came in the door. A bit of sunlight, yeah.
That's a nice way of saying it, isn't it? And she's still a sunlight.
She's a good kid. Yeah, she's not a gobby kid. She's a good kid, and she's...
All your kids are great. They're savage. And Caroline is gas. Go up to the gaff and bleeding steaks and onions and fucking... You don't do bleeding cornflakes.
No Hasler sandwiches up
No Hasler sandwich up in that gaff. Bleeding steaks and the bleeding Barbie and all the whole shebang. Good old grub.
In nurture Caroline, you know.
And come here, the minute you meet her, it's
she nurtured me.
Yeah. When I met Caroline, it was like as if I knew her all my life.
Yeah.
And I remember at Will's funeral, I went into the kitchen, you know. I started up a conversation with all the women that was there, you know. Whether they had a south side coddle or a north side coddle, you know. And there was a big row. You don't put that in the coddle. You know, there's all this. It was absolutely great. That's how comfortable I was with all them. All her sisters and all, and your people and all. It was great. That connection that I'm talking about, that happened up at the demo gig, that happened with me and you as well. Like, you know what I mean? I trusted you. That night that I met you to go to a meeting, I 100% trusted you. I remember we arrived, right? I was making the decision to go back to meetings. Yeah. And I rang you. I was at a meeting, ringing a friend of mine. He said, I'll meet you Tuesday. And I was like, fuck that. But I rang you and you said, yeah, we'll go to Donecarney. But when we got to Donecarney, there was no meeting.
Yeah, it was close, yeah.
And I knew I was in the right place because I started going up and down the road with the phone out, Googling meetings, you know, and we found one up in Raheny.
That's right.
And if anybody has been at that meeting in Raheny, you go down 2 or 3 steps into the back of the church, you know. And I stepped into the back of the church and I just got this feeling of, I'm okay, I'm safe. And it was terrifying going back in there, you know, because I wouldn't have been judged by any man or woman in that room, but I was judging me, you know, and even doing that, even going down in there and feeling that safety and starting to listen and starting to get willing, that was the best, that was great. And it was you and Will, like, you know, and thanks for that.
Thank you, Sparky. I mean, would you help out another person? If you're blessed to have the opportunity to help another person, we're the ones who are blessed to meet you, you know, because when you meet someone who's struggling, you're looking in the mirror image of the way you were, and that's a sharp reminder, and that's not gloating at anyone's misfortune. It's just that you're looking at them and you see, I was like that fella, and this is what we have to offer.
There's nothing better than seeing somebody getting well.
You know, sometimes in sobriety, people think there's nothing shiny going on, as I call it.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing exciting going on. There's no Friday night benders or Saturday night benders.
There's no chaos, yeah.
When we see someone getting well, our heart is filled with joy.
Yeah.
We feel fulfilled, truly fulfilled. A contentedness.
I remember the nuns in Ballymun. You know, they were non-judgmental and they were so solid in themselves. And I was thinking, how do you get to that point where you don't judge people? You know, I remember somebody robbed that gaff one time and they were praying for him that night, you know, and I was like, how do you get to that? And now I get it. During COVID, we used to go to meetings up in Fairview Park and I was saying, I'm bored, you know, and somebody says, don't mix boredom with serenity. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but I know what you're talking about now, you know. I rarely am bored now because I'm so full of life and I'm so full of what's going on around me, like, you know.
I don't think you'd do this podcast if you were drinking.
No, 100% would.
I don't think you would do the work with Francis Black or with Blue Balls or with Kelly Harrington if you were drinking. Not a fucking hope.
Not a chance. You'd be too concerned with yourself.
You'd be too up your own hole at the fucking party of a lifetime trying to fucking impress every stranger in the bleeding room while your life at home is falling apart, your relationship with your kids and your partner and your business is falling apart.
Fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's something beautiful in the madness. Life is hard and there's something beautiful to be learned from that. Alcoholism, addiction is hard, but there's something beautiful to be fucking learned from it. There's relationships with yourself, relationships with whatever spirituality you're interested in, with life, with new people. Somewhere wrapped up in it, there's a gift. Because I don't think we get this version of Jonathan in front of us if it wasn't like fucking hell for a while.
I never set out to be who I am today. You know, I suppose who I am today is probably the best version of myself that I have been. But when you come from addiction, when you're anaesthetising your mental state, I mean, I was drinking and taking my mother's pills and every shit, you know, from the time I was 11. You know, I wouldn't know me arse, me elbow. When you stop that and you get a bit of sobriety behind you and you start to realise why you were doing the things you were doing, what were you anaesthetising, where did the hurt lay, where did the trauma lie in the past, and you dig that out. And it's like one of these big perennial roots. If you cut it at the head, it's going to go back and back and back. You got to get out what's called a root and branch approach, get the whole lot out. And that can require a lot of deep seeking, a lot of deep searching, and it can be hurtful and painful. You know, you go back to the earliest memories of your childhood and you look at the things that trip you up, you know, and a euphemism would be the debris of the past on the street tripping you up. But once your side of the street is swept clean, you're free. And the stuff at the past, the bad stuff and the good stuff, is largely confined to the past. So a fellow would say, you look back at the past, you learn from experience, but don't stare back too hard. But a day sober, 24 hours a day, going on to, it's just organically grown. And things that have happened to me largely have been of a joyous nature. And sobriety doesn't protect me from life, but it gives me the ability to deal with life in a proper, dignified fashion. Whereas, boy, you can handle things that don't sit with you without throwing the rattler out of the pram, you know. And things that are joyous, you can really reap the reward of them. You know, your heart is truly full. Like the fella says, in sobriety, the good news is you get your feelings back, and the bad news is you get your feelings back. It's so true.
It's the yin and the yang.
There's something else that I feel we're here for, because we can chat. We're great at chatting. But I think there's a feeling that I get when we just look at each other, and it's that there. He said a word to me last year, and I never heard it before. It was malady. I'm still trying to work out what it is, and I don't know if you have a take on it. It's like a spiritual malady. The
situation really is saying about, isn't it?
I think the situation is life. I think life is the malady, and we get it twisted sometimes, and that's why I was talking earlier on about the fantasy we have in our head, and we wanted it like this, and the white picket fence, and the career job, and 3 holidays a year, and all that.
And I think that what the malady is that you might have all that, and yet you're still seeking. You know, you're still looking. You're still missing something. That's the malady, where you feel empty, where you feel different, where you feel out of sorts, where you might be, you know, off off kilter or whatever, right? So the malady is that you don't feel part of, you're kind of, I think that's a spiritual, I think what you're missing sometimes is something spiritual, it's your spiritual connection with your family, your spiritual connection with your community or whatever it is, and I think when you make it a spiritual connection, there's some people that I know who go to meetings and they don't believe in God. So the higher power is the energy of the meeting, wherever that is, the frequency of the meeting, wherever you want to call it, right? So that they can escape that malady, so that they can overcome the malady and they can move on, and recover. And we recover on a daily basis. We don't fully recover. We don't get cured from this thing, It's a hard one. It's a difficult one.
What I'm thinking in my head is, okay, let's imagine this is the last conversation we're ever going to have. Is there a way of saying it and addressing it, that there's a universal part of it? Because it's not just people in addiction, I think, as far as I can see, that have that malady. Because I have it and I'm not. And I wake up every day with it and I have a relationship with it. And I think it's the human condition. I think it's the spiritual human condition that we all have. And that's why I was saying sometimes I think alcoholics are lucky because they have found the bit that they can work with. For the rest of the people in the world, there's an opportunity there to really look at that.
I think, well, if you put it into a concise version of what you're saying, really, I think for starters, it's a good idea, as the fella says, you got to resign from the debating society to a degree, and just accept each 24 hours a snapshot in life and to try and do the right thing wherever possible. If you're thinking of another person, and I'm not talking about emptying every shilling in your pocket and giving to someone and then you having to hitch a lift to somewhere, I'm talking about just doing something right for someone on a daily basis, something small. If you have someone else to the constant fore of your mind, family members, if you do certain things like before you get home and you stop outside your own door and you pause momentarily and you think, what sort of a day did the people in my house have before I go in and I start dumping on them? Oh, I got a letter from the revenue, I met this customer today, blah, blah, blah. Just go in and say, listen, what type of a day did you have? And just, if you're not consumed with yourself, it's a great start. But just try to live every day as best you can, Don't pay too much attention to what other people are doing. As the fella says, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. It doesn't matter. Just be the best version of yourself, and just live. Give it your best shot. Give it your best shot. It's not a dummy run, And I know this for sure. Can I say it? People keep chasing the bank book all the time. In this life, there's no not at the end of your life is going to make you happy in your bank account. I seen him with Will, and I was with him until his last breath. And I tell you, it's our relationships with other people is what make us what we are. Our relationships in good shape with people around us in our own home. There's no point being pious out in the street and your home is like fucking ragdoll rovers. How are your relationships with other people? And they're the things that form who we are. I believe that.
Thank you, brother. That was lovely.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, boys. Great to be here in Ballymun. Thanks for having me over.
You up the flats.
You up the flats.
You up.
Here, fuck off, will you? Fresh, yeah?